I'm sitting there thinking, I can't remember how to invite you.
I was like for you to pop up. I'm like, I know she'll be here.
Oh, good. I'm so glad you know what you're doing.
It worked.
Oh,
It's
dear.
all good.
You did. Oh, dear. Well, I've got that mood board together that we were going to
Yes.
chat about. So,
Yes. I've got pull that back up.
again, I have no idea how to post it.
We'll mostly post it probably in the recording for after, but we can talk about specific books that people will be able to recognize. And I actually also, of course, as soon as we start, my dog decides to go for the squeaky toy right away. But I've also got up Amazon's like right now, so I can look at what's going on with the fairy tale retellings for the most recent current rankings for different types of retellings and that kind of thing too. That way I could kind of browse
Cool.
those. So
Cool.
yeah. So for the recording, so tonight we're obviously we will probably still chat about like whatever because that's how we roll. But we're
Yeah.
definitely going to be talking about fairy tale retelling books and book covers and like trends we're seeing, art styles that we're seeing that represent different types of ones, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. What you kind of see in a fairy tale cover, a retelling
Yeah.
cover.
Which is really good timing because I feel like the last 2 weeks we've had a lot of designers talking to us about retelling covers
Yeah.
and like what they're seeing in the genres and some of the little
Yeah.
like, extra breakoffs that they're starting to see. So, which I totally agree because I'm seeing the same stuff. So, I was like, this is really good timing.
Cool. It is very good timing. And I made my first retelling cover, and I think you did too.
Mhm. Yeah, we both did our first ones, and I've been kind of working on the one. So, it's October, so next month is Nano. And NaNoWriMo, NaNoWriMo, however you say that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm the worst at, yeah. But yeah, so I'm working on my story for that. I decided to work on the cover now. And oh my goodness, I was hoping that making my cover before I started writing the book would be easier, and it's so not.
Because you still have that idea, it's still yours.
Oh,
It's so difficult to make your own cover.
yes, I'm totally overthinking it. I'm like, I do this for authors all the time. So, yeah, I'm totally
It's
overthinking it right
different when
now.
it's yours. Yeah, I tried and I failed so badly. I couldn't even send the publisher a mock up of what I wanted.
Oh, that's why whenever
It
people
was
send me
horrendous.
stuff that's like, I want this on my cover, I kind of am like, like, don't worry about how bad it is because I promise anything I'm sending somebody to make a cover for me is just as bad. Like, I can understand your scribbles. It's okay.
Yeah. I know. I sent Jay a whole bunch of stuff when he did my covers the first time, and oh dear, they were a mess. Just pieced together bits of images and
Yeah, the
yeah,
artist that I hired, I was so excited that she was like, "Send me a Pinterest board of your inspiration for this and like some ideas." And I'm like, "Yes, because I've already got one." Like,
yeah,
wow.
exactly.
And I just cannot make it
Yeah,
myself for some reason.
I don't know what it is, but yeah, it's just impossible.
Total mental block. It's driving
Too
me
close to
crazy.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nuts. Sorry, watching the kiddo for a second while she's bouncing on the baby monitor. Um,
Oh, yeah, I thought she was in bed.
she is, but I'm watching her right now, and she's currently bouncing back and forth, refusing to sleep.
Oh,
So,
very cool.
yeah, it's a toddler for you.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So, okay, so tonight we were going to talk about retellings. So, I have to ask you first, do you have like cover wise or book or both, you can tell both, do you have a favorite retelling author, like a favorite series or book that's that, and like a favorite cover for that?
The cover and the work don't go together. My favorite of the authors is Mercedes Lackey. I love her retelling series,
Yes.
and I cannot remember what they're called suddenly. But I love the one where it's like supposed to be Cinderella, but she's too old, and the only eligible like prince is like, sort of 20 years younger than her, so she has to form a different path. And it's so clever, so clever.
I need to check. I've never heard of that. I need to check that out.
Yeah, it might be 500 Kingdoms, but it
Okay.
might not be. That might be a different series of hers. But they're just like totally, retake.
Yeah.
Totally different. A real good spin on them. Absolutely love them.
Oh, that's
What
awesome.
about you? What's your favorites that you've read?
Um, for stuff that I've read, oh, I'm trying to remember what her name is. So I've read some that are like very spot on. Like I
Yeah.
am a sucker for the ones that are about like the six princesses. I can't remember what it's. There's a
Oh, yeah.
typography cover one that's really cool, and it's about the six princesses. And like it caught my interest because it's one. It was the first time I'd ever read the story, and it basically was
Yeah,
like
I've
about
heard of it.
how like six women. Have you heard what happened to Bo? I don't know.
To what?
I had someone say, "Have you heard what happened to Bo?" I don't know.
Oh. Weird.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's really cool because like basically like all these princesses are pulled to for this retelling version, and it's the first book in
Yeah.
a series, and like all these princesses are pulled, and like there's six that are actually of age, and they have to go through these trials that are like torture. I think it's actually called the Princess Trials, and I gotta look. It's gonna bother me, but
Oh,
it's
I know the one with the crowns.
yes. Yes,
Yes. Oh, I love the
it's
covers.
so good. It's so good. And like they're trying to compete for this one prince and
Oh
like
my goodness.
it's I don't know, it was such a unique twist, but I will also say I love books that are loosely based on retellings to where they get that vibe and you can see it, but it's not like
Yeah.
damn, here is Sleeping Beauty. You know, like I love
Yeah.
that. For
That's what the Mercedes ones were like. They were just so different. It was completely about turn on them all.
well, and Sylvia Mercedes is really interesting too, as well, to watch because her covers did a huge. She did a recover on them. So like even in the Pinterest board, which we'll be sharing on our YouTube channels, we're going to upload this onto those with links and everything, so everyone can see what books we're talking
Yes,
about.
we are.
Um, but Sylvia Mercedes did a recover on her stuff. I was noticing that. So, like for example, the ones of them kissing, I think are the new ones, and the ones of them separate, like the ones of them touching, I should say, are I think are the new ones, and the ones of them separate are
Oh,
the
wow.
old covers.
So the separate ones are the new ones,
I think they're
or
the
the
old
kissing
ones.
ones?
I think.
Are the old? Okay.
I
So we're
think.
talking like I'm looking at the Scarred Mage Roseward. That's the one where they're kissing. I need
Yeah.
to turn this around, can't I?
I didn't notice till I was looking through them, and all
I
of a sudden I
can't
was like,
tell
well,
if you
wait,
can
we
see
have two
that.
covers for book one. Yeah.
I've got to work out how to turn my camera around.
It's harder in live. It is.
I have no idea how to turn my camera around. Clueless when it comes to phones. Why is this so difficult? Flip camera.
It's
Then
awesome.
I can actually see if I'm looking at the
Yeah.
right one. There we go. That.
Yes. So that's
Scarred.
the new one, and then we've also gotten the
That's the
folder,
new.
the first cover for it too, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize
Got
she
you.
recovered them, but I kind of get why because it invokes so much more emotion.
Oh yeah. Oh, here's number 3. This one.
Uh-huh.
The old number 3.
Yeah. Like there's so much more emotion and
There
storytelling.
is. Yeah.
It's
In
the
that one. Yeah.
level up.
Yeah. And flip
Yeah.
camera. Oh, and now get rid of the menu.
Well, and
There we
for
go.
that style, I will say the first ones that I was like, ooh, was Alicia Clapfeek's The Enchanting the Elven Mage, which, by the way, is a really good book.
Yes.
I did actually enjoy that one as well. Hey, it's good
Yeah.
to see you. But yeah, it's such a good book as well. And I would say KD from Story Wrappers nailed it
Yeah,
on the covers for that
yeah,
series.
definitely.
Oh,
Yeah,
those were the first ones that really were like the style of the couple on the cover, like that really caught my eye. And then after
yeah,
that, I started
same. I
noticing
love
everything.
that.
I do feel
Yeah.
like the genre, and those tend to be more sweet retellings, like dark retellings are kind of doing their own thing.
Okay.
But I feel like retellings are shifting into more couples. Because even a year and a half ago, most of them were the single girl on the thing, but it was
Yeah,
still, with
yeah.
lots of flowers or scrollies or, you know.
Mm-hmm. Pretty
And
much
those,
all my mood board is single people, other than the few that are couples.
yeah, well, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I do totally get why too, because I know I charge more to put another person on a cover
yeah.
because it takes
Okay.
hours in your bed. Go.
Yeah, and you've got to buy the assets and
Yeah.
all sorts as well. So there's a hard cost to it.
Yeah, it takes me several extra hours at least, even
Oh
just
yeah,
for like trying to find the right stock head swap or
yeah.
and then the painting
It's
time.
amazing how much time goes into that.
There's a reason I hired a really awesome PA who is really good at helping me with that. Like she's worth every penny just for that part of
Oh,
her job.
oh,
Totally.
I bet. Yeah, something I'm going to have to do one day.
Yeah. I was at the point where I was like, I've got to figure out some give myself more hours, actually taking more hours away from my daughter and away from my sleep.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that was the
yeah,
best solution I could come up with.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a good solution. It's working well for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, she spent hours. I tried doing what you said and opened up a different browser to search in deposit photos, and it did came up with different stuff. It was
Yeah.
fascinating.
Totally different. That's what's been it's been
Yeah,
really interesting. Or even like sometimes just popping up incognito window so that it doesn't do
yep,
anything
that's what I
central.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Totally different stuff comes
yeah,
up for you.
yeah. It's amazing. That's kind of why I found like the one I'm working on at the moment. I was like, I want it so that I'm looking up at her and stuff because I liked that perspective, and
Yeah.
I couldn't think of anything, and I wanted it as urban fantasy, sort of really urban and stuff. So I'm like, well, what can I do? Okay, they could be down the subway and looking up at the buildings and stuff. And I searched. I must have been searching for over an hour before I thought, right, that's it. I'm opening up an incognito window. I'm not finding anything. Sure enough, first thing came up.
Well, that's
You've got to be kidding
awesome.
me. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
crazy.
dear. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Got there in the end, but yeah, it would have been nice if they showed it to me now or before that.
Right? Well, and I do feel like urban fantasy has been doing a lot of um I feel like it's shifting in like the angles to like what you were doing with where it's not so head on. Like fantasy is still very head on for the most part, but like the
Yeah.
more urban, the more wonky the angles. Actually, that makes me think of another retelling one, which was a cover that
Yeah.
literally the book blew my mind. It's called Shattered Snow, and they just did a recover on it. I love both covers. Like I have no complaints for either one. They're both like object based covers, but
Okay. I've
Shattered
not got
Snow.
them.
Obviously, it's a Snow White retelling. Otherwise, why would you have snow in it? But it was really
Yeah,
interesting
true.
because it's like people from the future have like this whole can't break the time stream sort of thing. So they have like an
Hmm.
official record, and if anything changes, like they send people from the future into the past to like hunt down who's messing it up. And
Yeah.
and then there's like other people that will stash criminals or people from the future into the past, and there's someone who gets stashed into the past, and like the seven dwarves are all people that like they saved from different time periods. Like one of them's like a Roman dude, and yeah, it's so off the wall, and honestly by
My
far the
goodness.
most unique and like engaging retelling I've ever read. It was so good.
Wow. Wow.
I was impressed.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to read some of these.
I went through
Yeah.
a retelling like binge reading phase for probably a good 6 months. So
Oh wow. Wow. I haven't read too many of them yet, other than Mercedes Lackey, but Yeah, I mean, you come across the odd one, but you don't really tell him until
Yeah,
it's like you're in it. You
that was the princess games for me. I had no clue it was a retelling book two in the series, and then I was like,
know?
oh, okay, so that
Yes.
was the story that was a retelling because it went from that to the Snow Queen, and I recognized the Snow Queen, and then every different one. And I feel
Yeah.
so dumb because each of the princesses that were were part of the like competition in it are all different princesses and each get their own book. And I was like, how did I not catch on to who they
Yes.
were when I read this?
Yeah.
Princess
That's funny.
Trials. Man, I'm the worst at names. Like literally the worst.
I don't know. I'm joining the on that one. I'm not too good at names either.
Ooh. Okay, I
What
gotta
was
show
that?
you
Is it a dog
because
toy?
yeah, that's my. I'm sorry. It's either he's on top of me or he's playing with his bone or his squeaky toy. Like, you know. But I'm just did a look at my fairy tale retellings in the top, the first 32 things.
Mm.
And let's see if
Oh.
it'll actually show. But one of my covers.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that like never
That's
happens. I'm
awesome.
really excited. Well, I mean, it happens from time to time. Like Sophie Davis or stuff, pops up. But if anyone who
That's
saw that,
awesome.
it's called Burn Baby Burn by Miranda Grant. It's really good. It's like a Roman twist, but I will say it is very steamy, like super graphic steamy. So you have to like that to be able to get
Yes.
through it. But it is really
But
good.
if you do, perfect.
Yes. That was the thing. Like I have like my friends I can refer these steamy books to, and then my friends I cannot refer steamy books.
Yes.
So I always try to give warnings, like if I know that something I'm referring is steamy, like just as a heads up, this is this rating
Yes.
level of steam.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good idea.
totally worth it.
Oh dear.
I actually
Yeah.
just I have that cover in my portfolio, and I just had somebody try to like buy it. Like I'm sorry, that
Oh
was a
wow.
custom. It's been out for like almost been out for a year. Sorry.
Wow. Yeah. I started putting little sold signs above mine so that it's obvious they're gone.
Yeah, I do that in my regular my like pre-mades, but not my portfolio. And I probably should do that in my portfolio. Like that would be a
Yeah.
good idea. But like for me,
Yeah.
normally if I look and like it has a author name that does not sound like something dealing with a book, normally I assume that it's owned by an author. But if it says something
Yeah.
like author name or page turner or like that kind of stuff, I assume it's
Yeah.
either the author has not released it yet and they're putting a fake name on it or
Yeah.
you know, that kind
Yeah.
of thing. Not
That's
all
the
of
trouble. Most of the games that are like not bought yet or not released yet, as in I changed the title, but I'm putting up the one that I have. It still has arcane covers on it,
them.
even though it's bought. So I've started just putting sold signs on all of them, and then obviously the customs are just I put sold on because then you can tell. Just
Totally
makes it
makes
easier to
sense.
see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that totally makes sense. It's a good idea.
yeah.
Um, so I wanted to ask, I'm
I
like
have no
looking.
idea what this is. I've got invite the host to a match.
Yeah, I don't really mess with those. I'm terrible at that kind of stuff.
I'm not even going to bother then.
I'm like, I chat, but I don't mess too much beyond that. So, so I would love. Okay, so we'll first talk about like regular feelings. I would love to
Okay.
know what do you see, and then I'll share my stuff. What do you see are cover tropes for retelling? Like, what makes you scroll by and go, that looks like it's about a retelling.
I think partly it's color. Like, you've got to recognize the fact that it's Snow White or Red Riding Hood, a nice red, anything like that, and Cinderella blue. So gowns, and I know there's gowns in other ones, but they pretty much, not all, but a lot have gowns.
Yeah.
What else am I seeing? A lot of like flowers, is what I've seen. Flowers and leaves and that kind of thing, to bring that sort of foresty vibe into it,
Yeah.
because they seem to mostly be set in forests. If you think about like Snow White and all that lot, I know Cinderella was in a castle, but a lot of the others seem to be fairly nature based from
Yeah.
what I can sort of remember of fairy tales. So there's tends to be that, and then just symbols of it. So Snow White, apple. Sometimes you have a broom, that sort of stuff. Just anything that reminds you of that fairy tale, really, for me. What about you? What do you see?
I'm very similar with that, where I do, obviously not like all, but I would say it's definitely a trope to kind of match the Disney color for a princess to like her stuff so that it's immediate.
Yeah.
Also, like definitely the flowers, the scrolly type things,
Mm.
especially for details like around the edges, like on this, like around this area, tends to be
Yeah.
very, very like a definitely a trope for it.
Yeah.
Also, the typography for them, for the most part, tend to be more kind of an interesting mix of a very high fantasy, we'll put it that way, a very high fantasy type of typography. So they do tend to be definitely like sans serif. I always get those two mixed up. Is it
Sans
sans
serif is
serif or the
the like sci-fi.
yes,
Serif
the
is the one with the little
serif.
bits.
I told you I'm terrible at names. So they, yeah, definitely be serif, and they tend to have
Yeah.
extra like swoops and swirls on the typography
Yeah.
for it.
The
And I think,
swoops and swirls that I've noticed a lot of.
yeah, and I think it just kind of like that with the flowers and the scrolly type stuff, like that tends to be very
Yeah.
just pushing it into the romance so that you know it's not just higher epic fantasy girl in dress.
Yeah.
Like I feel like having the extra bit really goes, this is going to be a romance. And then,
Yeah. True. Yeah,
yeah.
because all the fairy tales are romances, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I'm
I
certainly
mean,
glad you managed to
or at
sidestep
least
that one, but
even the ones that aren't entirely, they tend to still become them because of Disney.
yes.
Disney was like, we are going to make everybody love these, so. And they weren't wrong.
Yeah. No, 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 definitely not. But yeah, yeah, it's the swirly bits that I see a lot of. You're right.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
framing. That's kind of another thing that I would say is a trope, is
Yes.
framing it, which is not something that you really see in other genres and subgenres for the most part. Like occasionally you see it in high fantasy, but
Yeah.
for the most part, you don't see that in non fairy tale retellings currently. That could always change,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah. I see it. I don't know. I see it a bit, I guess, but it's like it's not so much a trope, but it's almost like designer dependent, if that makes sense. I
yeah,
know some designers frame, sort of like stuff, more than others, but I guess you don't see it as the whole genre like that.
yeah, I could definitely see that. Makes sense. So then, what would you say would be kind of like stuff to look for in a cover to have an idea, like what you're seeing for tropes for a regular fairy tale retelling versus a dark fairy tale retelling? Like, have you noticed any differences in the covers?
I would think just the brightness of it. Like the darker ones do tend to be a lot more contrasty, a lot dark around the edges
Mm-hmm.
from what I've seen. But other than that, I guess the people could be a bit more steamy than like your sweet ones are, uh, you know, dressed, and the more steamy ones are a little more risque with high slits and you know kissing poses, that kind of stuff. I
Oh, fun
guess.
stuff.
What else have you seen on that?
I think one thing that I've been seeing is I feel like the dark ones tend to have more typography and object based covers than regular fairy tale
Yes,
retellings. Um, even
I
when you
think
look at
that's
the
dark
top,
fantasy overall, though, isn't it?
yeah. Well, like even when you look at the top like 100, just the percentage between the two is a big difference between the dark retellings and the regular retellings of object and
Yeah,
typography based covers. Um,
got it.
which really makes a lot of sense because the dark ones are definitely still going to have more, they're still going to be leaning in the romance direction, but the plot isn't as reliant on it as a regular retelling. And so that kind of makes sense. I feel like the more a plot
Yeah,
is reliant on romance, typically the better it sells with a person on the cover most of the time.
that is true. Because people like to know who's what the characters look like for a romance for a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly dark fantasy has really gotten into the typography and symbol covers,
Yeah.
and you see them as well in YA because I know you were talking about them in YA, a while back. But yeah, you definitely see them in dark fantasy.
Yeah.
I
Which
really like them.
YA has been going really heavy in that direction, which I think may be part of why we are seeing so many of them. Because, yeah, I
Yeah,
really feel like YA, especially most of the big books that have been coming out that are YA recently, have been dark fantasy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they're the ones I've been enjoying reading.
Oh, me too. I totally get it. They balance out the teenage angst with the like tension and
Yes,
drama and yeah,
yes. And if it gets
totally.
too dark, I just flip a few pages
I'm the same
because I'm too
way.
much of a wuss.
I am too. And it's bad because like this is normally the month that I'm like, oh man, I want to like watch all of the Halloween stuff and I want to read all that stuff. And like even so, my level of what I can handle is still like, okay, I might have to like skim this and see what's
Yeah,
next.
yeah. No, my level is like way down. Scary stuff and anything like that.
Well, I'm 100%.
Oh,
I'm so
I
the
was
way.
watching when I was at university. There was this massive soap opera on, and we were all watching it. And I ended up there was a cat caught in the chimney, and they thought it was a ghost. And I had nightmares for months. I'm just like, don't let
No.
me near a horror movie.
Yes. I like it.
Yeah.
My husband makes fun of me because during October I like to rewatch the Ghost Hunter episodes. And
Oh
he's
yeah.
like, really? First off, ghosts aren't real. And I'm like, you're wrong. I'm
Yeah.
like, and I don't mess with that stuff. But
No.
like, and even when I watch that, like, it can't be the last stuff I watch before bed. Like,
No.
and I will say, like, I have a certain level. I don't DNF books and like movies and TV shows very often. But when it gets too dark, that is one reason that I will DNF something. Is just I like hit
What's
my I can't
DNF?
handle it point.
What's DNF?
Sorry, do not finish.
Oh. Oh yeah. I've had a few of those.
I feel
Yeah.
terrible. I don't do heavy very well, and dark stuff tends to get
Mm.
really heavy and scary, and
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah. I managed Throne of Glass right through to I think it was the last, but yeah, it was the last book, wasn't it? And I was just, I flipped through a lot of that.
I haven't even had a chance to. I haven't even started that one. I've read all but the most recent. I read part of the most recent book for A Court of Thorn and Roses, which
Okay, I haven't read
that was
those
an
yet.
interesting one for me because like I totally thought that Akotar, when I first started it, like I immediately recognized it as this is a retelling. But then like it
Oh,
changed which retelling I thought it was gonna be, and then like it changed on actually being one, and I was like, okay, like how? Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how that continues.
yeah.
Sorry.
I've got them ready to read, but I haven't read them yet.
Yeah. I really love book two. Like, as you will hear from everybody else, book two will steal your heart and it will totally, like, change your opinion of absolutely everything from
Oh,
book
cool.
100%.
Oh,
So,
cool.
book one will feel like
Excellent.
a total lie to you by the time you're about halfway through book two. but
Awesome.
it's so
Oh,
good.
that's really cool.
I haven't
Yeah,
had
I've got about 6 books on the go at the moment, so they're a little ways down the line.
I'm in the middle of doing of reading The Beast by Frost K. It's book 4
Oh,
for that series. Like,
nice. Not read that either. Need to.
okay, first off, anything by Frost K, I am like totally her and Casey L. Bond right now. I am like super hooked on all of their stuff.
Oh,
But
nice.
and it looks like she just did. Sorry, I was looking at the dark fairy tale retelling covers on Amazon, and it looks like she just announced book 5. So like the first 3, I'm not sure if the first 3 for the Twisted Kingdom series was meant to be a retelling. It may have been, but I got too like engrossed in it to notice. And there's like it's such a unique
Yeah.
world. Plus, I am a sucker
Cool.
for like obnoxious kitsune men in books, and The Love Witch is one of those. So the first 3 is like their story, and I love that the woman, like the female character, she never like you know how sometimes by the end of a love story, when you're reading it, like the characters like meld into one, and like the women typically kind of lose who they were.
Mhm.
That does not
Yep.
happen in that story at all. Like,
Oh,
I
no.
was so happy when the end of book 1, she's like not with him. I was like, yes, like you go.
Wow.
But
Oh,
yeah,
I have to read those.
so the first 3 of that book 4 I'm in the middle of right now, and it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but where the Beast is a dragon shifter, and the
Oh, cool.
like so that's really good. And she just announced the title for book 5, which comes out in April, which is called The Hood, and I'm guessing that means it's going to be a Robin Hood retelling.
Sounds that way.
I would say stop
Cool.
adding books to my immortal TBR.
I know. I've started listening to audiobooks because then at least I can like, work and still do still listen. So
Yeah, well, and
oh,
I'm in them. I started. I need to read more of them. I am working my way through a Villains Ever After, which is like it's an anthology. Silver Mercedes actually did one for it. I think she may have done the Blueprint
oh,
one. I could be wrong though. Again, terrible with names, but it's one of those anthologies where every single person like has her own book and well, their own. I don't know if they're all female authors for this one, um,
yeah.
but where every single author technically gets their own book in this anthology with their own covers, and the covers are gorgeous. And but like the whole
Oh, wow.
series is Villains Ever After, so it's like a twist on the retellings in that direction.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to look that one up as well.
On that one. Like I had never seen. So it's funny because one of the gender bender retellings I'm planning is Bluebeard, and when she
Oh, wow.
announced, "Hey, I just released this," I was like, "Oh, it's another Bluebeard! Oh my goodness!" Like, yes, I was so excited.
Nice.
My Bluebeard
Nice.
though is like probably 3 or 4 books out for me to actually get to writing it though. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. I got sent because I do traditional publishing covers as well,
hmm
and one of the authors I did for that, I got sent the paperback for that. So I can't wait to read that. I've finished chapter 1 so far.
Ooh.
It's so good. She's such a good writer. So I've got that, but I've also got a non-fiction out of the library, so I want to get through that. So, what's it called? Company of One. It was Mariah who recommended that, and so I thought it's all about being a freelancer and stuff, and like being the only person in the company, but having the attitude of the only person in the company, not necessarily being the only person in the company. So I
That
thought
makes
that might be quite an interesting book to read.
yeah.
Um, and then what else? Oh, I'm halfway through my first paranormal women's fiction, fantasy fiction, PWF. Um, I'm halfway through my first one of those on Audible. Then I am halfway through another one on Kindle that I'm like reading in the mornings. That
How do
is
you keep it all straight?
all
Like, I
about
can't.
witches.
Oh,
I just, oh, I don't know. They just seem to separate themselves. It's like an Academy Witch one, and the author joined my Facebook group, so I looked up her books, and she had this one up there as like, I'm like, oh, that looks good. I'm gonna go read that one.
right. I do that all the time. Authors would join my groups, and I'm like, Oh, I need to. TikTok just makes it even worse because I end up following all these authors and they're like releases stuff and I'm like, oh, I need
Oh, that was good.
to. Yeah, that
Yes.
was like A.K. Mulford for me. That was how I discovered her. Was I just kind of happened to stumble on her right around the time she was releasing her book, and I got lucky. I'm so sad. Sorry, my brain's jumping everywhere. So like, I was lucky and I got to be an ARC reader for book one for her, and like I will say it is one of the best books that I've read in a really long time.
Very cool.
And she just sent out to her newsletter the signups for her arcs for book two, and TikTok is a beautiful destruction to book budgets. Yes, it is.
Yes.
But yet for some reason, like I didn't get her newsletter, even though I know I'm signed up for it because I got the free book from it. But like I didn't
Yeah.
get the newsletter to sign up for arcs for book two, which I still bought book one because that's how I roll. Like I just get excited to get to read them early. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I used to be one of the beta readers for ST Ben, so I was going through all of her books and giving feedback and then promoting it on launch day, and it was a blast doing that.
Oh yeah.
It was a long time ago, though. It was before I was even an author.
Oh, I love
So,
getting to arc and beta
yeah.
read stuff. I think that's part of why I like working how I do as a cover designer because I get to do that for so many of my authors. And like so it's just so
Nice.
much fun for me.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I will let them know like, hey, like this is a genre I'm okay with making covers for, but like I'm hit or miss on the books. Like for reading. Because I will fully admit I lean more into darker art than I can handle reading. So
Yeah, ditto.
it's true. You and I both love dark fantasy art, but like
Yes.
we're wusses when it comes to.
But yeah, the reading, I'm too much of a wuss.
Well, and I've been doing. I realized the last like 4 months, almost all of my customs I've been doing is contemporary fantasy, which is
Oh,
very
wow.
funny to me. So, contemporary fantasy romance, which is really funny to me because it's not a genre that like I naturally lean into for art or for
Yeah.
reading, like at all. I've enjoyed the books because, like I said, if I can get my hands on them to read them, I do. Like I enjoy doing that, and I'm excited
Nice.
because two of them just sent me signed copies, and so that means that I have two physical
Lovely.
copies I had purchased that I now am gonna leave like little fun facts in them about the covers, like
Awesome.
the process of it, and go drop them in some of the free little libraries in my area. Which I realized
That's awesome.
I should totally start putting that like up on TikTok. Like there's that woman that she did the random like stints for a while of her like dropping her book off, like throwing them over the walls of like Disney and
Oh my,
Universal and stuff like that.
oh my
And like that
goodness.
always made me laugh. I was like, you know what though? Like that would be I'd be totally cool being known as the cover designer that like buys the books and
Yeah,
leaves stuff and like puts them in little free libraries. Like I'm totally cool with being
yeah,
a cover designer.
yeah, yeah, that'd be really cool. I
So
made the
besides the
mistake of
mythos
taking my
stuff.
first one to the actual library, and they rejected it. I think they threw it away.
Aww.
Yeah. So, oh well.
I haven't even been to our library in so long. Ours keep opening and closing. So like it's hard to keep
Oh well.
track of if they're open or closed. So
Yeah,
I haven't even put in effort the
yeah.
last year and a half.
I get a lot of ebooks from them, but yeah, I've actually got this one was a physical book that Company have won because yeah, they didn't have an ebook. Otherwise, I'd have read that.
Yeah.
But they are open. I think they've been open the whole time, actually. Amazingly.
I do a ton of ebooks because my toddler is obsessed with books too. So if mommy's reading
Yeah.
a physical book, she needs to come and like flip the pages and see what mommy's reading.
It's not necessarily when you want the pages flipped.
Yes. And then I lose track of where I was. But if it's ebook, I can
Yeah.
like turn off the screen when she comes up and touches it, and I'm good. No worries.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
almost everything I read right now is ebook.
Yeah. Yeah. I never thought I'd read an ebook. This was like back when was it 2009, I think. One of my friends bought a Kindle and I thought, no, I'd never do that. I love books and why would I ever want to do that? That's never going to catch on. And then the following year I got one. I haven't read a physical book since unless I have to.
I have never even bought a Kindle. I use the Kindle app on my
Oh, wow.
phone, and like
Oh my goodness.
I've
Yeah,
never
you know
bought
what
a
I'm
Kindle.
like with my phone. I
It's
Kindle.
hard because when it's on my phone, I'm not gonna lie, I totally end up sitting there. Like, it's hard to not be distracted by Facebook Messenger when an author pops up on there for me, or like, it's really hard
Yeah,
to not get
true.
distracted. So that is a bit of a problem. But that does mean I
Yeah,
always have a book with me. So when I'm stuck somewhere waiting,
true.
it always
Yeah,
helps.
very true. Yeah, Sarah's just joined us and she says she does audiobooks. And I totally get that, having started listening to this one.
I've only listened to a couple audiobooks. My attention span's really bad.
Yeah, I thought mine would be, but then I've been sort of watching like TV, Tubi and stuff, all the movies and stuff, and I find I'm ending up looking at the screen. So this stops that happening because there's nothing to look at. So then I'm focused on my work. So I'm actually better doing audiobooks than I am just like listening to TV in the background.
Oh, that's an interesting. Like,
So
I had
yeah,
no clue. That's
yeah,
interesting. I'm trying to
yeah.
think. There's a YA.
And
So
Sarah does the same thing.
I need to try that. There's like
Yeah.
a sci-fi trilogy that I think it's a trilogy. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I own the physical ones, but it's outside my daughter's door, and I don't want to bother her when she's trying to fall asleep. But literally the best. So I read the book, and the book was so cool because it doesn't read like a regular book. Like, it's like looking at pictures of physical reports of what happens. And it took me a
Oh wow.
while. Like, one, that formatting had to have taken like a year just for the
Oh my
formatting.
goodness. Yeah.
I mean, it's
I can't even
crazy.
imagine.
I feel like my brain's telling me like the Illuma something. Um, but because it's in that format, one, it takes a little bit to get into to read because you're so used to just reading words. But
Yeah.
the audiobook blew my mind because
Oh cool.
it was it wasn't just one person reading. They had multiple people doing the different parts and like the sound
Oh, I love it when that
effects
happens.
and like,
Yeah.
oh my
You
gosh,
feel
it
like you're in a
was,
radio play.
yeah, it totally, when I was listening to it, actually, it made me think of, I mean, obviously not like plot wise, but it kind of made me go, okay, I could totally see how people could have been fooled by that prank. What was it, like forever ago, but where they did a prank on one of the radio stations that's now super famous, where like a spaceship crashed in some farm and everything.
Oh yeah.
Everyone believed it. And for the longest time, I was like, I totally don't see how that could have happened. And then I read that book and I was like, okay, yep, I get it now.
That's
I can
Was
see.
it called Sleeping Giants? Sarah says.
No, I'm trying to remember what it is. It's gonna bother me now. Right?
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's so good. Try this.
Because I thought a lot of the like little RPG audiobooks went the that kind of route with lots of different characters done by lots of different people. But when I asked the publisher about that, they said that those audiobooks don't sell as well, amazingly. I thought they'd sell much better.
I've had a lot of people tell me they didn't care for them
Yeah,
because they were it was harder for them to pay attention to, and like they
got you.
liked the idea of, like, they liked feeling like someone was reading to them instead of feeling like they were
I think that's the thing.
actual.
Yeah. Is it Illuminate?
Yes.
Oh,
My brain kept
yes,
saying
that's the one. Right,
Illuminati and I'm like,
Sarah.
yes, that's it. It's so good. So good. The whole series is really good. I will say the main character will piss you off multiple times. But I mean, that's what every main character does.
Still have to read it.
Yeah. It's really good. And I highly suggest at least looking to see what the physical version looks like and like listening to the audiobook, because that's one of the few times I've actually done both and like felt like it was totally worth it. Because they're such
Oh
unique
wow.
experiences for both of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. I read one that was, I guess it started with a report. It was oh, several years ago, and I had no clue it was romancy. I thought it was pure fantasy, but it wasn't. Um, I think it was called Aphrodite's Kiss. I cannot remember the author's name. And the covers at the time, they've been recovered, but the covers at the time were like pure romance. And I asked for them for Christmas, and my mother-in-law was like, "What are you reading?" But they were absolutely brilliant. It started off with a report from the High Council because it was all about superheroes and half superheroes. Sort of one parent was a superhero and things, and it was really, really cool.
That is
It was the only
cool.
like sameness that I could think of when you said it was all like reading reports, and yeah, it was really cool.
So, like, for example, okay, again, I know my phone is gonna be really hard to see, okay, so I apologize. But, like, when you pull this up on Amazon, just the preview, let's see if I can get it pull up. Like, these are the pages. Like, they literally look like actual reports.
Down a bit, and then to your
Sorry.
right a bit. That's it.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Oh,
So
down
that's the
left a bit.
cover, but, like, these are the interior pages.
Oh, cool.
It's so different.
Oh my goodness, that is different.
Yeah, like I said, it's a totally, that's why I would say totally suggest doing both because the experience is so unique for both. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Sorry. I don't even read very, I don't
Interesting.
even read very much sci-fi. That one just kind of like intrigued me from the cover because the cover's so different. And
Yeah.
and actually I first heard about it because I'm not going to mention the author because she's very controversial. But before she became controversial,
Oh, oh
and
no, you're back.
there we go, sorry. But yeah, before she
That's
became
right.
controversial, she I followed her on Instagram and she was like, "This is the best audiobook I have ever like listened to."
Oh,
And I was like, "Okay, I've got to check this out." And then when I saw it, I was like, "Yeah, I get it. Totally get it now."
that's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I haven't read sci-fi in ages. I started out in sci-fi, and I remember reading Arthur C. Clarke's, what was it? Islands in the Sky. That was the first sci-fi book I ever read. Have you read that one?
No, I don't read a whole ton of sci-fi. I did
Oh,
have
that
a
was
yeah. Okay, tell me the
he
name again. Now I gotta
basically
like go look.
Islands in the Sky, and the main character basically was on a game show, and he'd like spent I don't know how many years preparing for this game show because he was determined to win, and the prize was a full round trip or paid holiday, whatever it was, to anywhere on Earth or something like that. And he'd researched and he'd got a lawyer and he'd researched the wording. And anywhere on Earth at that point was defined up to so many thousands of feet above the Earth, which included the space station. So when he won, he's like, "I want to go to the space station," and they tried to get out of it, but the lawyers were like, "Well, it is in the contract and stuff." And it was all about his journey to the space station and his time on it. It was just fascinating.
Oh, that sounds interesting. It's funny because you'd
Yeah,
think I would read more sci-fi, and I have nothing against
yeah.
it. I just tend to read more
I
fantasy.
just read fantasy. Yeah,
Yeah. But I
same.
watch a ton of sci-fi. Like,
All right, I don't. I watch fantasy too.
I do too.
Fantasy or romance.
I will say though, it may partially be because I feel like there's more better like made sci-fi movies than there are fantasy
True.
ones.
Yeah,
And
there's not great fantasy movies, but
yeah, there's
there's a
not
few.
very
But
many that
yeah,
really like feel that same level of like quality.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sarah says if you want to try a sci-fi series, Murderbot is great. I've not even heard of that.
I haven't either. I am
Ah,
putting that on my list at the moment.
yeah. But yeah,
I
fantasy
do
movies, they are quite often not well done in the special
know.
effects department. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
that is one
No,
thing that has
I
me
watch
excited.
rom-coms.
I've been doing a lot of rom-coms and just a ton of Korean and Chinese shows recently. My
All right.
Netflix looks like that's like all I watch right now because that's
Yeah.
basically all I've been watching for like 6 months.
I know. I'm the same. I'm at the moment. I seem to be going like after one cheesy Christmas movie after another. It's like you get to the end and it recommends five more, so you put them all on your list.
So I pay for I started paying the yearly thing for Friendly. It's like an app that does a bunch of TV channels, and it's
Oh no.
like I pay like 50 something a year for it, but I get
Yeah.
a ton of live TV channels, including all of the Hallmark ones. And
Oh yeah.
you can like choose to record stuff with it and you can like watch them on demand. And I literally got it. It's I found it was cheaper for me to do it that way and just keep it year round so that I could have like the fall and Christmas Hallmark movies. And
Oh
then
nice.
yeah, and it was funny because then I have my kid and they have a baby channel that literally all day it just plays baby shows and like
Oh
toddler
no.
shows. And I was like, well, okay, now it just
Yes.
speaks for itself again. Yeah.
Yeah. I've only just discovered Tubi, and it's free TV, free movies, and all sorts. And
Hmm.
I've just been plowing through that. They have a lot of cheesy Christmas movies.
I love that. I actually, it's funny. It's got to be longer than 6 months then that I've been watching the Korean and like Chinese and just that part of the world for
Yeah.
stuff because I started watching it when I started feeling the burnout coming on from just
That was a while
overbooking
ago.
myself, and I think that started in
Yeah.
like January. And
Yeah.
I started watching them because it forced me to not touch my phone because I needed to read the subtitles. And
It's a good idea.
since then, that's why I've been watching them like after work every night. I'll do that. So I have to like stay off of my phone and disconnect enough to
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, it's a clever idea.
And they tend to not be
I
super
tried
scary.
to watch some of the Chinese ones because I love like the kung fu kind of ones, but I couldn't like hack looking at the subtitles and then trying to work out what I was doing, and I just yeah.
I grew up with my mom watching like all of these European movies with subtitles. And then
Oh
I
right.
married a guy who loves anime. So
Oh
I had lots of practice before.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
also
My
an
parents like
incredibly
grew
fast
up
reader.
watching French movies, but they speak French. They didn't watch the subtitles.
That helps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh dear.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
One movie I did found that I absolutely love. I don't know if you've seen it. It's Matt Damon, and it's I think it's called The Great War. It was a fantasy movie, a really well done one.
Yeah.
That
I
was
I
really cool.
know I've seen it, but again, memory. I
Yeah,
swear it feels like my brain just over the last few months has like had just reached its maximum limit of like what it can intake and it has to decide like
I'm
what to
trying.
dump for me to be able to have a memory again.
Oh
Fun
my
fact
goodness.
though, I did find out like a year ago that when you get pregnant, your brain literally rewires. And so, like,
Okay.
in order for you to be able to do better, like, it kind of is a rewire so that you're able to be a better multitasker for, like, your intuitive stuff for kids. And
Huh.
it permanently rewires your brain. So that's why so many, like, there's the mom brain that everyone jokes about. There's, like, a
Yeah.
legitimate science, like, backed thing
I had
now.
no idea.
And I was like, okay, this
Wow.
explains so much.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had no
random.
idea.
I didn't either until I thought it made me feel so much better though, because I was like, how did I get so dumb after having my kid? Like, how? That's how.
Oh my goodness. God, I had
Besides,
no
add
idea.
on the lack of sleep and, from having
Yeah,
a child.
exactly. That's what I figured it would be.
It doesn't
But
help.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Permanently on overtired mode.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. I had no idea.
So then that does make me curious because we're talking about movies. Do you have
Yeah.
so we were talking about retellings and that kind of thing. So like is there a or there's several like retelling movies that you
There
feel
are.
nailed
There's
it.
some really good ones. what was it called? Enchant. Amy Adams and Patrick Dempsey. It is really cool. Have you seen that one?
Yes, and I think if it's the one I'm thinking of, let me double check.
She's in fairy tale land, and then she goes through a portal. She gets pushed down a well and
They're
goes through a
doing a
portal and
second
comes
one.
up in New York.
They're
I
doing a
love
second
that one.
one for that.
Enchanted. Thank you.
Yes,
They're doing a second one. Oh, I
they
did
are.
hear that.
They
You're
just
right.
announced it.
I can't wait for that. That was such a great movie. I love it when she like cuts out the curtains and has a new dress.
Yeah.
That was so good. She's an amazing singer as well.
Yes. She's just so adorable anyways. Like anything she's in, I'm like, aw.
I know.
Even if
I
she's the
pretty much
bad
watch all her
guy.
movies.
What was it? Netflix suggested to me recently a movie where she's the bad, like, she's like, it's not a
Bad
fantasy
guy.
one, but where she literally is like, kind of like plays the bad guy in it. She sleeps with her
Oh,
best
okay.
friend's fiance. And I'm like, I can't even be mad at you because you're so freaking adorable. Like, it's not
Yes.
fair.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. It's not wedding date, is it? Because she sort of pretty much does that in that one too.
I don't know. It might have been. I can't
That's
remember.
my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. This is a
I
good
love
movie.
that movie. It
This
is
is
a
a
good
really good
movie.
one.
I've
So
lost count of the number of times I've watched it.
I've got multiple like that they're my like,
Yeah.
and there's certain ones that I'm like, I'm in this mood. I need this movie right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Colin Firth's Pride and Prejudice series. That's the
Yeah.
one for me, just over and over and over. And then Amazon took it off, like Amazon Prime. I'm like, no, because I have it, I own it, but I've got the English version, so I can't play it here on the computer because it has to be an American version.
Is that
So,
the BBC one?
bye, Sarah. Yes, the
Okay.
BBC one.
So Hulu has it.
Yes, with
If you have
Jennifer
Hulu,
L.
if you have
Sorry, who
Hulu,
has it?
Hulu has it.
We let Hulu go, unfortunately. I did have it for a while, but we just found we weren't watching anything on it, so there was no point paying for it.
I only have Hulu because it came packaged with my Disney.
Yeah, which we don't need, so we don't have
Yeah.
without kids. I can see why
Yeah,
you have it,
right.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
It was like we've got like ESPN with it and that kind of stuff. We don't watch sports, but it all came together. So
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Nice. But yeah, no, we had it for a while, but yeah, just don't watch it anymore. So
So then,
yeah,
I'm curious. You said you had other retelling movies that you like love. So what are some of the other ones?
yes. Oh goodness, what was that going completely out of my head again? Um, the Maleficent one. What was that called? That
Yes,
Angelina Jolie. She was really good in that. And
I agree.
then there was another one with her in it that was basically Snow White, but I cannot remember. The Huntsman. That's it.
Oh, that was really
That
good.
was really good. I liked
That
that one a
was
lot.
really good.
I loved how like non like diminutive she was. You know, she was just going out and kicking everyone's butts. I loved that about it.
Yeah. Well, and Mirror Mirror was like that for me too.
Yes,
Like,
that was
plus,
another
like
good one.
Julia Roberts, I adore anyways, so
Yeah, yeah,
that
yep.
helps. Yeah.
Can't think of any others at the moment.
I will
Yeah.
fully admit one of my favorites is the
Oh,
Cinderella with Whitney Houston.
I
Um,
don't think I've seen one.
oh my goodness. So Whitney Houston plays the fairy godmother, and Brandy, the singer, plays Cinderella. It's, I mean, first off, those two
I've
are
not
like,
seen that one.
it's so good. And it's cool because the prince actually is, like in real life, he's the cousin of one of my friends. So
Oh
we
my
were
goodness.
talking about these movies, and she was like, I was like, yeah, I love this movie. Like, I'm watching it right now. And she was like, you're not going to believe this, but he's my cousin. And I was like, what?
Oh my goodness. I've thought of another one I absolutely love. It's Ella Enchanted with
Yes.
Anne Hathaway. That was such a good one. I
That was a
love that
really
one.
good movie. The book is amazing too. They're so different, And I
I've
loved
not read
both.
the book.
I didn't care that the movie was different than the book because I loved it. Like I loved both that much.
Oh, cool. Well, I have to read it. I had no idea it came from a book. I
Yeah.
absolutely love the movie. Again, I don't know how many times I've seen that one.
Well,
A
and
lot.
okay, so the like fairy chick from Ella Enchanted, the movie, she's
Uh-huh.
in she's the queen in the new Cinderella that Amazon just put out.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I
And
have to see that
so
one.
that
There's another
one,
one, the one with Barrymore in it as well, that was really good. Um, she was
oh,
basically
Ever After.
Cinderella. Ever After, that's it. Love
Yes,
that one too.
I do too. I need to find that one again. I've actually been thinking that I needed to rewatch it and then just
Yeah, I
not.
rewatched it recently because we had the DVD for that one. Really like that one.
I'm terrible about remembering to use my DVDs. It's really bad.
Yeah. Yes. I actually went and bought a DVD drive for the computer because we never get to the TV.
Yeah. We mostly
Yeah.
use our we mostly use our PlayStation for that.
All right.
Yeah.
Huh. I don't have a PlayStation.
My
I just
husband's a
sit on
gamer.
the computer all day.
Yeah. I was trying to think. And like I got hooked on it. I need to finish it. But there's a TV show that's called Grimm that's also really, really good. But it's like a mix between like a cops detective kind of show and like fairy tale retellings. It is a little bit on the darker side, but it's not really dark. I don't know. It's hard to
God,
explain, but it's
I think
really
the title put me off with that one because it sounded dark.
yeah,
I
like
thought of
it's
another one when you said hooked you on it. Hook.
yeah.
That was a retelling of Peter Pan. That was so good too.
And the first couple
I really love
seasons
that.
of Once Upon a Time were awesome, and it just
Oh
like each
yes.
season seemed to get a little bit lamer. But the
Yeah.
hook made me think of that because like I still have a total crush on Captain Hook in that. Like, how could you
Yeah.
not?
Exactly. And Tenth Kingdom as well. That
Yes.
was really good.
I think
A
Amazon's
really good
is it
one.
Amazon or Netflix that has that right now. Oh, I can't remember.
No idea.
That is
I
actually
watched
one
it
of the
a long time
very
ago.
first like retellings I remember actually watching that wasn't like a kid one, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. I love Bo Peep or whatever she is. The
Yes. Or like the little
shepherdess.
sassy fairy.
It's awesome. Yeah.
And that
Oh, dear.
I think that the actor from that, the one that plays the wolf, I think he was one of the reasons I fell in love with Gilmore Girls because he plays
All
one of her
right.
interests. Well,
All
you
right. I've
thing
not
you need to
seen
watch
that.
Gilmore Girls because I'm like I will fully admit if I could like decide the kind of woman I was going to be and like it would be a combination between the mom from Gilmore Girls, Lorelai, and the mom from The Good Witch on Hallmark. Like
I've
there
seen the. I've seen the Good Witch. I've seen one called The Good Witch.
they had a
It's
couple
a girl
movies.
with sort of bob
Mhm.
cut. Okay, it
So they
is.
did a couple
Oh,
movies and the
cool.
movies did so well they decided to like reboot it as a show with all the same actors and everything. And like it's still airing with new episodes.
Oh my goodness! I
Netflix
had
has
no
a bunch of
idea.
new seasons right now. And
Oh,
then
I've got it. I have to have a look.
do it. I'll
It's
just
called The
add
Good
it
Witch.
to your list. Yeah, The Good Witch. It's
Oh,
so good.
cool. Because I really enjoyed the first season, but I had no idea they did any more.
Oh yeah, it's got like 7 or 8 right now, I think, something like that.
Oh,
It might be
cool.
less, but
Yes.
there's a and yeah, I loved that like the daughter, one of the daughters on that was the daughter from what was young Snow from Once Upon a Time. And I was like super excited about
Oh,
that.
wow. I don't remember that. I watched it too long ago, I think.
It's
I just
awesome.
remember I really enjoyed it. And there was another one that I really enjoyed. Again, I cannot remember the name. You cast a spell on me, or something like that. Basically, the guy comes from a magical family and he falls in love with a muggle, but not so named. And it's all about revealing the fact that he has magic, and she ends up taking his magic by mistake. Um,
Oh. Okay, it keeps getting recommended to me. I think on Netflix. I think.
Yes, it's definitely on Netflix. And it was the guy who was the boyfriend in, oh God, what was it called? There was a really good series where a guy worked at something like Best Buy, but it wasn't Best Buy. Obviously, it was a made-up company, and he got like Chuck. Thank you. Chuck was the series, and the guy who was the main from this was the boyfriend on Chuck, like his sister's
Ooh.
boyfriend. He's a good actor, and it was a really good series. Really enjoyed it. Both of them actually, but the movie was really cool, and it was kind of fairy tale-ish.
I could see that. I haven't, man, it's been a long time since I watched Chuck.
Yeah,
It's been a long time.
yeah. It's been a long time since I watched it too. I went from there to White Collar. I loved
Yes,
that.
we did too.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
Yep, we did the same thing.
Yep.
I was just looking at
Can you
this,
think of any more retellings?
and like I was trying to think of, like TV shows or movies. Those are
Yeah.
probably my favorites that I rotate through. I did notice, I forgot I was going to mention this earlier. Have you noticed a uptick? I think it may have something to do with Lore having come out last year, I think it was, which is a YA fantasy book. But I feel like I've seen an uptick in Greek, like fairy tale retelling type things,
Huh.
especially Hades Persephone love
I
stories.
had Hades stuff, but I assumed it was just demon stuff. I didn't realize it was retellings.
Yeah, because I do know that they're like in the original lore that like they got together, but I
Yeah.
like even as I'm scrolling through the top like 100 stuff in the retellings, a bunch of them are Hades
Oh, wow.
Persephone's retellings, which is
I
I
had no
kind of
idea.
they kind of make sense when you consider that like we were talking about how we're seeing more of the dark fantasy
Yeah.
creeping into this, like
Yeah.
I get because I mean Hades is like the epitome of the bad boy for
Exactly.
but he's like
Exactly.
seems to somehow actually like Hades I swear is the most sane of all of the Greek gods. Like he's the only one who's
Yes.
responsible about his job or making
Yeah.
a bad boy of him, which is kind of
Uh-huh.
ironic.
Yeah. It's like watching Lucifer as well, that series.
Yes.
And he's the only kind of responsible same one as well half the time. I love that series too.
I was so happy when Netflix picked it up and like decided
Uh-huh.
I feel like it's actually gotten better since Netflix took it over, which says a
Oh,
lot.
really? Oh, cool. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. I haven't watched the latest season because we watched a bit, like, I think it was the first half of the first episode in the new season, and my husband was like, "Yeah, I'm over this." So I haven't watched it since.
We haven't watched the most recent one that just got released, like I think
Gaia.
in the last month or something like that. I haven't done that yet.
Okay. I might be a season behind you, or I might be that's the same one. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
But
I think I've only seen one of Netflix's seasons.
okay.
I
In
think.
that case, that's the one I haven't seen yet. I don't think I've seen any of Netflix's ones.
Yeah, they just
So,
released a second one of theirs, and I'm like
okay.
trying to
Get them.
convince my husband that
Go.
that should be what we watch next, even though we're in the middle of a bunch of other stuff.
Yes.
You know, we've
We
got
seem to
that.
be watching a baking show at the moment,
Ooh, which
despite
one?
neither of us eats cookies or cakes or anything like that.
So I have
We're
to know
watching
which.
the Great British Bake Off.
It's
I think it's
so
because it's
good.
British.
It's
Yeah.
so good. I was so sad. Oh,
Uh-huh.
what's her name? Okay, this is gonna sound really insensitive, but it's only because again I cannot remember names. But the first few seasons has like the
Mary Berry.
tall lesbian chick with like short dark hair.
Oh, yeah, as the host, you mean?
Yeah. So
Yes.
I adore her. And before she did that show, she did another British show that was her with a radio host friend, and they like lived in um like they would choose different time eras and they would have to live
Oh,
in that time era for a week, like with the diet and the dress, and like they had to act like they were like to like learn, and like there's
huh.
it may have been a couple weeks for each one, but they were doing it to like they actually saw a doctor before and after to see what the health benefits
Yeah.
versus like, you know, negative things
Cool.
were.
Glad to
And
see those.
she's so funny in that because she's like, what is wrong with these people? Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, I watched something similar. It was called, was it the Victorian Farm? Was one of the seasons, and they were like a year long there. And then
Hmm.
the Edwardian Farm and so on, and it was just amazing. But I don't know. She was a historian for basically home ec, um, and
Yes.
one of the guys
Hey.
was a archaeologist, I think.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it was a fascinating series,
I've seen
and I love the
parts of
Christmas
all of them.
episodes as well. Okay,
Yes.
we've watched the whole thing. It was just absolutely fascinating. But there's a recent one that's actually still going. They're building a castle in France from scratch, the way that they used to build castles.
Oh.
They've been going for 17 years so far, and these three people had like I don't know how many months basically, being there, living there, and building and stuff. Absolutely incredible. They had these basically like human powered hamster wheels that were how they get the blocks of stone up to the top of the castle. It's just incredible to see.
Oh, that
So,
is. I can only imagine. That's one thing I've
yeah,
thought about a lot, actually. Like when I've been, because I mean, come on, you can't read a like fairy tale retelling or really any fantasy book without castles. And when you really
yeah,
think about like how long these took to build, so like
yeah.
you had to have been insane to have not decided to build your castle at the beginning of your reign and hope you lived long enough to ever get to live in it.
I
Like
know,
how
I
crazy is that
know,
to think of?
I know. Considering this one's relatively small and they've been going 17 years and they're still, you know, barely past the second floor.
Right? Well, and just thinking
Yeah,
of like how, I mean, like just the process of it, not counting the money, and that was one thing that was interesting to
yeah,
me with studying some of the Egyptian stuff, like when they discovered the old city that was right there. Yes, that's what she was saying, like the pyramids. Yeah, exactly. Like the fact that there
yeah,
was that whole city right there. And it totally makes sense because how else could they have done that? They had to have like their own economy to
yeah.
be able to do that
Basically,
because they took so long.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Well, that's how these castles. This is what they were saying. That's how these castles started. As all of the workers like became a village around it, and as
mhm.
they built it up, and they didn't come with anything. They sort of got there and they built their own tools while they were there, and they
Yeah,
used those tools to then build the castle. And oh, it's just amazing.
I love
And the
watching that.
blacksmith was basically the center of everything.
Yeah. It's interesting when you think that like blacksmiths really kind of had they were fairly powerful people, especially for
Very.
the level of society that they sat in, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they really
I mean,
did.
everyone had to come to them, whether you were noble, king, or whatever. If your horse needed a horseshoe or you needed a weapon or whatever, right
Uh-huh.
through to the poorest of the poor who needed a pot.
Exactly.
Everyone came to the blacksmith. So,
That
yeah.
would be an interesting story. Like something that's like, of course, me being me, it'd probably be like a female main character. But it'd be interesting to like do a book about like a blacksmith and like them manipulating something, like some sort of like
Yeah,
something going on within the royal court, or
that would be
that would
cool.
be a really
That'd be very cool.
yeah to explore that
Yeah.
because I
That
know
reminds me of A Knight's Tale with Heath
yeah
Ledger.
another amazing movie.
Yeah, that was an awesome movie.
Oh, she says there's a book called The Hangman's Daughter. That sounds really familiar. The Hangman's Daughter.
I haven't
Said
heard of that one.
didn't realize the power that the hangman had. Yeah. There's a couple like
Wow.
positions when you really think history wise of people that had way more power than they
Yeah,
realized, I think, in all honesty.
yeah.
Like, I mean, one, oh, she's gonna look up the author for us. The Hangman's Daughter. 'Cause that's a really good point. Because, yeah, I was thinking about like the poison taste testers. They had a lot of
Um,
power. I mean, like,
yeah,
especially since so many poisons, if you just let your body work up to it, you can handle certain poisons. So like
True.
imagine, you know, they really one, they got to eat really good food.
Yes, or at least a mouthful of it.
Like they had a ton of power, and I mean, merchants knew that they had a ton of power. Like
Yeah.
Oliver Potts, Potsch, is the author for The Hangman's Daughter. I am typing that down at the moment as well. Excuse me there. Because now I'm really intrigued. You know, and even just for like building a story, that would be like really some interesting stuff to use for like subplot to really like
Yeah.
define and
Yeah.
build.
Would.
I'm just imagining like something where by the end of the book, like the beginning of the book, you start like with the feeling of like the king and queen having all this power. But then by the end of it, like they feel like they're nothing almost,
Yep.
you know, like
Yeah.
because of
And you
how,
realize who's actually got the power.
yeah, like because it, the higher up in ranking, like the less important they really are, kind of thing.
Yeah.
That would be a really, of course, you know, again, it would
Yeah.
have to be like dramatic and fantasy because I don't want to spend my time writing non fantasy stuff because I write to escape.
Exactly. That's why I read fantasy.
Oh, she says he does a lot of medieval Germany, which my whole family, like, not my whole family, my dad's side is Germany. So, like, I love reading this stuff. So, if you like Hangman, even though he kills people for the government.
Yes, there is that.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Ooh, that
Yeah.
cover's
Back
really
to
cool too for
retellings.
this.
Sorry?
Sorry, I was just pulled up the Hangman's Daughter so I could add it to my like list, and the cover's kind of cool. The typography is really pretty, and it's cool because it's literally just like her feet. Ooh, oh, what was it called? My book club had me read a Cinderella retelling.
Uh-huh.
Let's see if I can remember the name. We'll see. Maybe eventually. But it was really interesting because it was during. Oh, she says. Oh, he has other skills and trades. Nice. So it was like a retelling, but it's from. Like it's set in World War II, I think. And
Uh-huh.
the. Or like right after. It's right in that time period. But they're like direct descendants of Cinderella. And so like the dress and the shoes and all of that actually hold magic, and
Okay.
this young woman ends up being put in guard of this stuff. Oh, it was because her family, no, her family wasn't a direct descendant. They were protecting the stuff for the direct descendants because they were like the dressmakers, like direct descendants of the dressmakers. And so they're supposed to like
Yeah.
hide it. And like the magic of this stuff was actually what was causing World War II or something like that. But she ends up putting the stuff up on display in like
Yeah.
a store window and all sorts of
Yeah.
drama pieces from it. And that was another one that was like
Huh.
unique.
That would be fascinating to read.
So they were mice. Very cute
Oh
mice.
my goodness. Yeah. That made me think actually of another series by Mercedes Lackey that I read, The Elemental Masters. And one of those was very, well, not that loosely based off of Cinderella as well. It was, she was basically Cinderella. So yeah, even though the rest of the series was more about um, the elemental masters and the magic and stuff like that, this one was very tightly based on Cinderella. It was amazing. I never really thought of it before.
Yeah, I guess it's interesting to me. I love seeing what levels different people, when they're doing their retellings, like what level of like how close to someone else's version of a retelling they did. Because really, we're used to
Yeah,
like basing them off of Disney's retellings, but I mean, Disney's,
exactly.
so many of theirs are such loose retellings of
Yeah,
Grimm.
yeah, yeah.
So like
I
it
love
makes
it
me
when they
laugh
twist
when
it completely.
yeah. Like it makes me laugh when I
That's
see
what
people talk about like, but Frozen is just Queen. I'm like, the only thing similar between the two is that she has ice power. Like,
I got you.
really, when you read the original, no.
Got you. I haven't actually read The Ice Queen. But
Even though, like, most of the retellings, that's what something is I found really interesting. Most of the retellings for the Ice Queen are based off of the original and not off of any Disney ones, which is one of the very few. It says like the Twilight FSOG retelling. What's FSOG? I'm bad at remembering.
I have no idea.
I'm like really curious now. The Twilight FSOG.
I'm gonna look up that
If she
Hangman
types
one.
it, I'm gonna like laugh at myself. 50 Shades of Grey. Yes. Yes. How
Oh,
50
that
Shades
was
of Grey was a retelling, was a fanfic of Twilight, a steamy fanfic of Twilight. Yeah. But like,
I had
that's
no
not
idea.
the
I've yet to see
connection.
Twilight.
I haven't read the books, but my husband and I were dating when the movies were coming out. So
Wow.
we lived in a small podunk town, so like seeing whatever movies were coming out was like the only new stuff to do. So
Yep.
you just saw whatever because it was that or bowling or walking around the park. Like that was the
Yeah.
extent of what we had to do in the area.
Yeah. Yeah. I've lived places like that too. What was that one called? Is it not The Hangman's Daughter?
Hangman's Daughter.
Oh, it is. Okay. No, that is beautiful. You're right.
Right? It's so simple and so different.
Yeah. But beautiful border. Absolutely
And it,
beautiful
it
border.
draws you in. You're like, why are you only seeing her feet? Like, is she the one hanging? Like, I have so many questions just from the cover.
I have a different cover to you. Let me
Show me.
flip camera. That's the cover I got.
Ooh.
No feet.
Great God.
But very cool.
Oh, that's cool. She says she's a cover
Yeah.
snob. Dude, so am I. There is a reason I'm paying $500 to have an artist who is not an actual cover designer who is going to probably hate me because I'm going to have to make sure that she does the right composition for cover design.
Yep. And leaves room for typography.
Yeah, fortunately, she did a cover that was similar composition to what I want. So,
Well, that's good.
yeah, Susanna, thank you. Susanna Crisco. I told you, I'm the worst at names. Like, I recognize the picture as soon as you popped up, and I'm like, I know her name. What is it? I'm so sorry. Was it Melanie who did the first? I'm seeing if this is one of the series. I'm excited for the event tomorrow that she's going to be in. She's saying she's in the event tomorrow. Yes. You made some really pretty. Yeah. The Christmas cover events
This is
tomorrow.
the book cover event. Ah, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
cool. Nice.
That should be really interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah.
It's been a while
Yeah,
since
very cool.
We've had a bunch of people joining the group, so that gives me like high hopes. But it's
Yeah.
always hit or miss because I know that like holiday books and like season specific book covers are harder to sell in general because a lot of authors don't write that kind of stuff unless they have a huge following who's like asking
Yeah.
for it. I mean, that was really
Yeah.
why Akotar got one of their books, which is funny because so I didn't know that A Court of Thorn and Roses when I finally like broke down and picked it up. I had no clue that there were actually 4 books out at the time, now 5. And
Uh-huh.
I just thought there were 3. I didn't realize there was the
Oh,
novella. And so when I
oh.
ordered them, I accidentally read book 1 and 2 and then went right to the novella and missed book 3, which is like the grand finale big battle stuff. And I was like, this is the worst thing ever.
I did the same with the Throne of Glass. I was like this close to getting on Facebook going, sort of, what the hell? It
Okay.
ends with the person being kidnapped and this doing this and this. And I'm just like,
No.
why is there no sequel? And then I realized I actually already had it.
So I actually, yeah, so I was literally, I went on Instagram and I was like, okay, what did I do wrong? Because this is the biggest letdown ever. Like, clearly,
Yeah,
she just went into hiding and, like, I'm not gonna do spoilers for anyone who hasn't read it, but, like, she clearly just went off into the last place she would possibly want to be. And, like, there's obviously a massive battle coming in that next book, and I was all for it. And then, like, nothing. It
I
like
know.
they were just like gently mentioned, and I was so lost. And I'm sure that I would have
Yeah.
enjoyed that book so much more if I would have actually read the third book before I read that one. Oh my goodness, I felt
Uh-huh.
so dumb when I posted on Instagram and everyone's like, "No, you did it wrong."
I know. I thankfully realized what was going on before I posted anywhere. Because it was like everyone was going, right, let's begin. And I'm like, well, you can't end on a let's begin. It just that doesn't work.
And I feel like Sarah J.
Oh,
Maas
dear.
is one of those authors that like you can't mess with on social media because her fans are like such
Yeah.
fanatics. And so I was
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, people are gonna hate me for not liking this. Like, this is the worst wrap up ever. Yeah.
Well, I made the mistake of looking up the series order because there's a novella in that as well. And I didn't know, well, I'm not sure it's a novella, but that there's one book that is about one of the characters, not the main character. And it's like, well, which order do you want to put that one in? Do you want to read it before this number or read it after this number? And I didn't know. So I went looking for, series order. And, everyone was saying, I'll read this one before this one. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. And it was obviously such an old post that the guy didn't have the last book in his reading order. And that just is what threw me for a complete loop. And I thought that book didn't exist. And there it was already on my my Kindle. So I was just like,
Oh my
oh
goodness.
dear. I
Okay,
know. Because I bought them so long ago that I'd completely forgotten what I got.
I get that.
Yeah.
So Susanna,
Oh dear.
for you said you loved book 1 and 3 and you hated 2 and 4. Which series was that for? Because it's funny because Karen and I have each read one of Sarah J. Maas's series
Yeah.
and not read the other one.
Not the other one.
A
I
Court
have
of
to
Thorn and
read
Roses.
Agatha.
Oh, that's so interesting that you didn't like book 2 for A Court of Thorn and Roses because it's the only one I really liked. I
I
hated.
can't wait to read them.
Oh, that's so interesting to me. So then, does that mean that you're a Tamlin fan? Because that is, I'm not gonna lie, I'm so Hulu, I think it is doing A Court of Thorn and Roses, and that's gonna be,
Oh wow.
yeah, it got picked up for that, and that's gonna be really interesting to me.
Oh cool.
You know how, like, as people who've not read it, who are gonna watch it because they don't like to read, but they like to watch stuff, and like, I promise, the whole fandom for this series is gonna be sitting in the background for this first season, which I mean, it
Yeah.
might, I'm guessing they're doing like a season per book, but everyone's gonna be like, ah.
I hope so, is all I can say.
I
Because I'm one
will.
of those people, I love reading the book first, but then I go to the movie and I think, no, that didn't happen. That's wrong. This is wrong. It just destroys the movie for me.
So you like the guy who kidnapped her, which would be Rysand, I think, is probably who you're talking about, which is who I love, which is why I love book 2. Yeah. Yeah, like I said, yes, Rysand. I totally get it. I don't have very many book boyfriends, but he is someone I crush on hardcore. So I get it. And it's funny because, so I'm not doing like actual spoilers, but the only time that like Rysand is like you hear about him all the time when you see anything about A Court of Thorn and Roses, but nobody actually, like, if when you're reading book 1, he's like a nobody. He's literally a blip.
Oh,
And it wasn't
wow.
until I read, like, got into book 2 and I got far enough into it that I was like, oh. Like she really had to have planned this out way better. Because initially, when she swapped over to book two, when I started reading it, I was like, okay, this does not feel like the same thing. Like it felt like
Uh-huh.
it was a retelling that got swapped into another direction. Because at first, I was getting like serious Beauty and the Beast retellings for book one, and
Uh-huh.
I was like, that's cool, you know. And then book two, I was like so confused because it wasn't going along in that same Beauty and the Beast sort of vibe. And then
Wow.
by the time I finished book two, I was like, oh, this is way better planned out than I thought because some things are mentioned in book one that literally seem like absolutely nothing, that mean nothing until book two. I'm like,
Nice.
okay.
Yeah, she's good at that.
She says she's had so very many few paranormal romance books that she's read with the popularity. She had to read it. I get that. That was the Court of Thorn and Roses for me too. It was not something that was on my radar at all until I joined Instagram, and that
No.
was when I first started seeing it all over everything. Especially because the original covers were so pretty, like, and they
Yeah.
were so different.
Yeah. That's kind
But
of why I read Throne of Glass. It's because of the covers, basically. You know,
yeah,
I like the original covers with the girl on it. That's what got me into like dark fantasy look. And then she switched them to the topography covers, and that's when I thought, okay, I got to read these now.
yeah, that I totally get too.
Yeah.
Jennifer Armentrout. The name is ringing a bell. She says she met Jennifer Armentrout a few years back. I'm trying to. Why is that name ringing a bell?
I, yeah, I've heard the name too. I don't know why either.
I gotta look. There's a reason I have my laptop on my lap. Oh, she did a Blood and Ash series, right? Yeah, she's a definitely I would say a comparable to Sarah J. Maas. She did like Shadow and
Oh,
Ember, so
really?
a lot of the typography covers that you really like. Um,
Oh,
the Kingdom of Flesh and Fire from Blood and Ash. A lot of those that you have in your things are.
yes.
Now
That's where
I'm
I've heard the
curious, who
name.
does her covers? They look very familiar, like art style wise.
No, I don't.
I'm going to see if I can get to it.
Nice covers though.
Right, they're very pretty covers. She does a Polycon in DC. Ooh, that's one that's on my bucket list that I want to go to. I want to do a Polycon in DC. I want to go to that. I want to
What?
go to the. Yeah, it's a huge, like, just nerd con kind of thing. I want to go to that one. I want to go to the Salt Lake one. I think
What
it's
is
called
it?
Fan X. Like a. Are you familiar with like Comic Con and like
Yeah.
the general idea of it? So a lot of the Comic Cons, they've like throughout the world really, but the US is really big for them especially.
Yeah.
They a lot of other ones have popped up throughout the whole US at varying sizes, but they allow authors to come as well, and some of them have become just for authors because they've gotten so big. Yeah, she's saying that one was big enough that it's a reader author event only. And yeah, a lot of them got so big that they swapped to just author cons that's just
Oh
for
my
that. Like
goodness.
20 books to 50K is one that does that. And
Mhm.
it's all indie. There's no traditional and it's
Yeah.
massive. And they do I like when my little one is
Yeah.
older,
One
I
year
want to go
I make
to
that.
that. I really want to
Yeah, I
go to
want to go to that as well.
I think for now, I'm probably just going to do the virtual for the next couple years. Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't realize that a Polycon in DC was romance specific. Yeah, I didn't know that. I've looked at
Cool.
some of them, but I'm only just starting to like. I've always looked at like the Comic Cons and the ones that had the combination, but
Yeah. Yeah, I want to go to Dragon Con. That's one I really want to go to.
I get
And
that.
one of my friends is an artist at one of the Comic Cons in Mexico. And she
Ooh,
goes there and she'll like draw whoever's standing in front of her, like a Superman or whatever they, choose, kind of thing.
oh,
It's really
that's
cool.
well.
Yeah.
And I think Ken Coleman. He's
Mm.
like one of first off, like one of the most incredible artists, especially for science fiction. Like, dude, he blows my mind. But I guess he is set up for a con in Frankfurt, I think it is. And like he just posted
Oh,
a
cool.
picture of him like with his setup, and he's going to be doing his digital art
Oh, wow.
live in front of people during this thing. Like, and that's what his
Oh,
booth is. He literally just set up for his booth to be for him to do this with a big like TV
oh,
screen behind
that's so
him and
cool.
his art surrounding it so that anyone walking by can see the art he's doing. I'm like, I would
Oh,
literally
that's
just stand in front of that and just like watch him.
exactly.
I mean,
Exactly. That would be really cool to see. Hopefully
right?
he'll record it.
Right? And he has such an interesting like one, the fact that he teaches art. Like so he's clearly got to be good at that kind of thing. So I'm very
Yeah.
intrigued to see. Like I would
Yeah.
love to watch his
Yeah.
process.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be fun.
There's a couple people that I enjoy watching as they work and their process. Do I have very much time to actually do it? No. But
No. I've
but when
got
I can.
so many things to watch.
Yeah.
I've been trying to go through the Photoshop summit that's on the last day today as well. I've learned lots of little bits that I didn't realize. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I was totally planning on doing that and then got so overwhelmed this week that it just never happened. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, oh well.
Yeah.
I'll deal. I should have thought about the fact that it was the week before this event because I always do either one of us consider ourselves fine artists? I don't. I would love to
No,
someday, but
that's not me. um, I think book covers are a marketing piece. They're there to sell the book. That's what their job is, and that's what I do. And yeah, fine art and marketing don't always go together. It's nice and pretty when they do, but my number one thing is it's got to sell the book.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. She was saying she doesn't either. She's sorry, it was Susanna. She's saying she doesn't either. She's totally different mindset. I will say if I did decide to do more of that because I like the style of it.
Oh yeah, it's
If I
beautiful.
decided to do that, I would actually, and I wanted to stay in the bookish market. So, for anyone who decides they want to do that, I would use it to focus on making marketing images for authors. Because a lot of times the
Yeah,
cover itself for paid ads are not
yeah, it
good,
doesn't work.
but
Yeah,
more fine art type stuff that like shows a scene from the book and evokes an emotion, those
yeah,
work better. Um,
yeah.
so like if someone wanted to really get into fine art that's still book related, that and
Yeah,
like character cards
that,
and that kind of thing
yeah,
would be the way to go.
yeah, yeah. It was fun because I've done a few character cards and it was fun for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah,
Character
definitely not
cards are
on
like,
the cover.
yes, Karen does have some books out. She doesn't write anymore, but Karen is both
No,
indie and trad published.
yep,
Well, I'm good. Fortunately, there's a lot of on both of us on our chats. We've got a couple designers, and we're both designers and authors, so we tend to be involved in a lot of the. I would say that Karen and I, because we're so used to having to figure out the marketing from the art side as well as the writing side, I think that we may have a more broad understanding of like what will work better for different spots because of that. Which
yeah.
I don't mean that in a cocky way. It's literally just that we've had to put the
No,
time
once
into
you
learn
experience
about.
both sides, it helps.
Yeah, so much so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
Yeah,
really does. Because I went through Brian Cohen's ad course and I learned so much about AMS ads with that, and yeah, the image is part of it.
yeah. It's a huge
So
part. It
yeah,
really is. Well, and
yeah,
also like even people who love books love words. And most if people are reading obviously it's different when they're reading nonfiction. But people who read fiction more often than not He says she wishes that we could both see what is in the chat box. Yeah, I try to share as much as I can of it.
Yes. I know, it'd be nice if you were like, talking to each other that you both got to see it. But yeah, I
Yeah.
had the same when Sarah was on. I was like reading it out.
But yeah, we've got a couple other people who are popping up in the chat here and there too. But yeah, it's kind of interesting because like one thing that I've noticed when I've been studying, you could jump on Karen's. Karen will not feel lonely if you jump on there. Just saying. And
This is
Karen
true.
is awesome. So because I think you may have been her longer than me. But yeah, because people who love books, they want to escape and they love words and they love how words look, and authors especially love how words look. And so that's kind of an interesting, like they want to feel an emotion, they want to escape. So like from what I found, TikTok, Instagram, any sort of paid ads that are going onto Amazon or Facebook or, TikTok, Instagram, you really kind of have to have the right combination of emotion evoking art and words. Like the
Yes.
one thing that I see that I would say for cover designers, authors, really most inexperienced people in this area, the one of the biggest mistakes that I see when they're trying to market themselves is they put up an ad of some sort or they're trying to market themselves and it sounds like an ad. It sounds like an multi-level marketing person, which don't be wrong, I know some people don't do that in a cheesy, sleazy way. But
Yeah,
it that's
the
what it
most do.
feels like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hi there.
So she's hopeless when it comes to imagery. It's
It's tough
definitely
because, yeah, I did Chris Fox's ad course as well when I was writing. And one of the first things he said is like starting you to come to create about 20 different images for your Facebook ads, none of which contain your book cover, and
yep.
then try and learn which ones work better and why, and analyze it. It was fascinating. So
That's
yeah.
something I'm working on right now. But I'm fighting my imposter syndrome really bad on World Walker on my book that I've got coming out soon. Cause this is gonna sound like I know it's imposter syndrome. But when you've worked on a book to a certain point and then you're just like you're sick of it. And like, what's the point of even releasing it? Because I'm sick of it. Everyone's like, it's
Yeah,
not gonna be,
everyone's gonna be sick of it. Yeah.
yeah, like you have that.
Yeah.
And I can tell I'm at that point with this book where I'm like, I'm waiting to get it back from the editor. This is my second round with an editor because I needed help early on.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah.
you said, ooh, she's got an illustrated cover for a rom-com, and that's gonna be a challenge. Though, rom-com does really well with illustrated covers in specific art styles. Um,
Oh, that's good.
I've done a couple that are on that, so I've done a lot of studying. 'Cause any cover that I make for somebody, I tend to do a lot of research first. I know Karen does too, and Susanna. Like, we all tend to do a
Yes.
lot of research into like the
Yeah.
current markets.
That's my jam.
Yes.
Yeah, because she came
Susanna's.
from a marketing advertising background, so
Mhm.
yeah, cringes a lot at a lot of ads. I can see that.
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
too. I do too.
yeah,
And I feel so bad when I'll see a an ad that the art is like perfect. I'm like, "Oh, that nailed it." But then the words they used for it, like I found the ones that I see usually do the best for like Facebook especially tend to have some sort of like quick, not necessarily funny, but like summary about the book, or is a really
yes,
intriguing scene that you like get a
yeah,
sneak peek into. Like those tend to do so much better than this book is like these other authors, or is like
yeah.
like the blurb. The blurb typically is not very great. Like they need instant emotional pull in. So like the art
Mm-hmm.
and whatever your type words. Not that I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
really think
Right.
word at the moment,
Yeah,
but
so many give the plot away. They
yeah,
do.
yeah,
But there's got to be something in there. And I mean, if you can summarize your book in like 1 to 2 lines and that works in an ad, if you've summarized it well, it's just enough, like, here's the hook. It's like, oh, yeah, I want to know the answer to that.
right.
So,
Or like I said, that's why I've seen. I think some of the easiest ones to do is to do part of a scene that like really draws an audience in, like the one that you were the
yeah,
most excited to write.
yeah,
Even if it's like a huge plot thing, you don't have to put the whole scene. You don't have to give the whole plot giveaway,
yeah,
but put enough that people like, because most people when they're scrolling through Facebook, you typically like get a general gist of the first 1 or 2 sentences of most
yeah, you
posts
do.
that you're scrolling past. So if you can
Yeah.
catch them with a scene that makes them stop for a second and go, "Ooh, I need more," and the art
Hmm.
does the same thing. Actually, that was one thing that um, for those who don't know, Logan's a friend of ours who's a cover designer as well as a best-selling author. And that was one piece of advice that she gave me was, and she said she does this for her, and I was like, okay. So I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I'm gonna say it. She said that one of the things that she does is the big money that she spends, she doesn't necessarily spend it on a cover designer. Cover is very important, um, but she'll spend the big money on a fine artist to do an emotion pulling piece of art, and that is actually a tax write off for her because she uses it for the ads for marketing. And so she's
Yeah.
like, that's how I can afford to do the really good artists for something for my book is I use them for my ads. I don't use them for my cover. And I was like, that's interesting because I do get it though. Because I mean, if that kind of art versus a cover is a completely different composition, they need a different type
Yeah.
of emotion to pull to it. A scene from a
Yeah.
book does not normally work for a cover at all.
Yeah. It doesn't, unless it's lit RPG. That's the
Yeah,
only
lit
time I've seen it
RPG.
work.
I swear lit
But
RPG gets
they're
away
really
with
into the
so much
battle.
stuff that no one else really does.
Yes. They seem to be the opposite of every genre
They
almost.
do.
But yeah. But everybody, the readers, they want the scene. They want to see the battle. Is the battle worth following, kind of thing?
Oh
You know,
yeah,
it's a game. You
exactly.
know. But anything else, yeah, you've got what, 1/3 of a second or whatever before it scrolls past it. It's got to be clear.
Yeah,
And a
it's
battle scene nine times out of 10 doesn't do that.
and you have
So
to have the right
fine art.
composition to like have a center of focus somewhere that your eye is going to catch as you scroll past it in that split second because
Yeah,
otherwise your eye literally skims past it. That's one thing that I've noticed. There's been a bunch that like if it doesn't have a focal point of some sort that draws your eye first, I see a lot of them that will do like just a movement, which is pretty, except that when you're scrolling, your eye does the same movement across the cover and it
yeah,
never stops to read the title. It never takes in any
yeah,
actual detail. So it's not doing its job of making someone look at the cover for more than a split second.
yeah. I have a question here. Is the genre you design the same as what you read, or did you find you were better at something different? I'll let you
My
answer first.
Okay, so my preferred genre and the ones I really specialize in, yes, but that's mostly because I do a lot of high and epic fantasy and like fantasy retellings. But I stepped back from doing romance and like scary kind of covers when I started getting booked up. I stepped away from those. So I don't do steamy, but like I was telling Karen, I the last few months I've been getting a ton of contemporary fantasy romance, which is not a genre I normally read. But
Yeah,
I've been doing a lot of covers for those, so those have been interesting because the style is very, and I do cozy as well and a couple other things like that. Even though I don't have as much time to read as I would like. I think everyone has that
yeah,
problem.
none of us do. Yeah, yeah,
Cozy is a genre I really want to get into reading because it's like Hallmark murder mystery, but half time you throw in magic, and I mean that's I'm totally down for
yeah,
that. But yeah, I don't
yeah.
read a whole ton of contemporary fantasy romance, but I've been doing a lot of work in that. So yeah.
Cool.
What about you?
Yeah. Well, for me, the art, I tend to design that works the best for me is either urban fantasy, PNR, dark fantasy, and I seem to be. I love the artwork of them, and I get into them, and I seem to be pretty good at them. And up until really a year ago, because of what I wrote, I solely read lit RPG. Now I'm sort of like starting to read the other ones that I've, that go with the covers that I like designing. So I'm starting to read the dark fantasy and a lot more of the urban fantasy. And I had read urban fantasy before, but there's an awful lot that I missed along the way. So I'm sort of
Yeah.
starting to read those now. And I'm starting to read some PNR as well and try and get into what I like designing in cover wise. So yeah, there wasn't an overlap, but now there is starting to be an overlap.
I actually get that. I do some paranormal romance. I don't do a whole ton just because my work
Oh,
tends to be a little bit less saturated in general.
yeah,
I don't always do that, but and paranormal romance tends to be much more saturated just as a trope for the genre. But
yeah,
a couple years ago, I got really into shifters, and so even now, like I still
yeah. I
have
love
certain
doing
authors that
covers.
I follow. Like
Yeah,
I love a good dragon shifter or wolf shifter.
nice. I
Sometimes,
haven't read any shifters, weirdly enough, but I love doing the covers.
oh my god, no!
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
bleh, bug in my mouth. Bleh. Sorry.
That's right. We have a fly going around here, so
Oh yeah, I
oh,
love a good shifter. When I read, I need something that's far enough away from my like regular everyday life to be able to mix things up. Yeah, I love shifters.
yeah. Shifters are beyond my creative scope, she says.
They're hard,
Oh
especially
dear.
because like especially for wolves, to find good wolves, that's really
Oh yeah.
hard because the good ones get used over and over and over again. Actually, my cover this week is a female with a wolf shifter
Yep.
cover.
Mine's rules. Not what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But mine's going to be interesting because pieces.
Oh wow.
So I'm having to be creative about how to do it so that it'll still be very tropey for the genre
Mm.
without a face. So
Mm.
right now I'm working on the
Yeah,
rough
that's
draft.
gonna be different.
Yeah.
That is going to be different.
Yeah. I've got a couple ideas that I think will be really cool. And like if they work and if she likes them, I honestly think that they're because it's going to be a series of four, and we're working on book one right now. Um,
Oh, cool.
but if it works, if she likes the idea that I've got for it, I think it's going to be one that's going to like fit into the niche really well, but that's
Oh,
definitely going to stand out. So,
nice.
in your bed, go
Nice.
in your bed, off with me. Sorry. Really, he gets
That's
lots of
good.
love and cuddles. I promise.
Yes, he just wants more.
He's so sweet, but you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, talking of bed, I should probably call it a night pretty soon.
sounds
Puppy's
good.
kind of like.
I get that. Yeah, I got some work to do tonight. So while we're on, especially that way anyone who's on can kind of see, is there a genre or subgenre that you want to like dig into and play around with for next week?
Yeah, and I'll create a mood board for it on Pinterest, and we'll have a chat, and then we'll link the mood board in the YouTube video from the recordings.
Definitely. Yeah. So yeah, well, I will let you get some sleep and I will start work so I can go to bed at some point in time.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Where am I from originally? Oh, I'm from all over. I was born in England, but I actually grew up in Hong Kong. And then I moved back to England for university. And that's where I met my husband. And now I live in the States. So all over the place.
I know it threw me for a loop when I met her first too. I like hearing her
Yeah.
voice on Zoom, and I'm like, man, I know what time it is in England, and why are you awake right now? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And then I find out she was in the States. I was like, okay, this all makes so much more sense.
Yeah. Yes. My family are kind of spread. My sister's in England. I knew Florida wasn't where you were originally from. Yes. But yeah, my sister's in England because she went to university in England and she met someone at university, and so she married him and stayed there. And my parents are in Switzerland, so they're kind of different to everyone as well. But at least they're an hour. Actually, they're an hour further away than England. So, but still works. I still get to chat to them like a couple of times a week. So
Nice.
thank goodness for Skype.
I have an aunt that's 2 years younger than me that she met,
Oh,
ironically, in Florida. She met a British
oh my
guy
god.
and moved to England, and now they've got like it's so cute. Talk like video. I video chat with her all the time 'cause she's here as well, so we talk
Oh,
books. And
cool.
she it's so funny because it's so weird to me to hear my cousins, my little like young kid cousins running around with British accents. And I'm like, what? Just
Yeah,
so crazy.
yeah, yeah. My nephew and niece have very strong. Well, they're in Sheffield, so they've got very strong Sheffield, Manchester kind of area accents because he's from Manchester and they now live in Sheffield, and yeah, it's
That's
very
awesome.
different. Well, my sister's accent, needless to say, has gone that way.
I love that though. I get that though because I'm originally from Idaho. When we moved to North Carolina, my a lot of my family that's out here, even though they're not from North Carolina, they have Southern drawls, and I'm like,
All right.
yeah. I love it when I'm out here and people are like, "Oh, what's like your accent? Where's it from?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Your accent has a name. It's a Southern drawl. Like I don't have an accent."
You do to me.
I love that.
Completely random question. Is Birmingham an okay area? I don't think I've been to Birmingham. It's a bit, I guess, like Liverpool and fairly sort of streetwise, but then there's some very nice areas too. So I don't know is the answer. I don't think I've ever been. Oh well.
Yeah. All I know from that stuff is what I see on TV, so I'm no help for any of that.
Yeah. Oh, one of my book models lives there. Oh, cool.
Oh, that's
Very
cool.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
something that I would love to get into is doing like photography
Oh, that would be so
models.
cool. But I'm an appalling photographer, so I don't think that'll ever happen.
I love doing it, but I don't have like it's years away. I don't have time to schedule that.
No,
Yeah.
no.
My
And I
goals
don't think I'd have
though.
the guts to like go up to someone and say, "I like your look. Can you come back and let me photograph you?"
I would
As
feel
some
like
of
a
these people do.
creeper. Like that would be so hard
Exactly.
to not feel like who okay, what's his name? The designer that he does it he does the photography for his stuff and then he puts up like the extras for sale or something like that. And he was saying that his was it Keith?
Keith Kurt.
Yeah, it might have been him that was saying that like sometimes he has to have his wife be the one who goes up and asks women
Yes, I know. You're
when he
thinking of the
does
same
that.
person. I can't think of his name. She says, "I would love to work with a photographer. I met him on TikTok, and I can't think of his name now."
Yeah, I'm terrible at names, but yeah, that made me laugh when he was like, yeah, I got to a point where I felt creepy doing this, and so I just started like for the women, my wife goes and asks, and for the men, I go ask. I'm like, I get that.
Yeah, Furious Photog or Wanderer. I have no idea. Egar. I don't know. I don't know what that says.
It's probably the TikTok handle for the photographer.
Oh, okay. Got you.
That's
I
good to
cannot
know
remember his
though,
name. I'm
because
thinking
I'm
it
always
starts with a
looking
K.
for like new and like unoversaturated photographers that do
Models.
photography
Yes.
for designers, like for book covers that like
Yeah.
we can. because that's
Yeah.
hard to find.
We need another 20 face docs.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. That's part of why there's some projects I actually do use. I spend the $25 for period images for something from them sometimes because they're not overused.
Yeah. Yeah. BT Urella, Urella, is a model slash author. Wow. That would
Ah,
be cool. Be the model on your own book covers. That would be amazing.
okay. Well, what's his name? There's a guy who is a romance author, and he's on TikTok. Again, terrible at names, but he's got like
Romance
fairly
author.
longer hair, super built dude, and like everyone's like, you
Also
need to.
disabled vet.
Ah. Yeah, he needs to be on his own covers. He writes romance and
Mm.
he's gorgeous.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow. Yeah.
okay. And he has an awesome voice and he does like voiceover videos
Oh,
sometimes
my
of
goodness.
like TV shows and like anime
Oh, wow.
especially. And we're like, okay, you need to also do our audiobooks too, because I would totally listen
Yeah,
to you.
exactly. Ryan Stacks.
That's probably. See, all these people are good at names.
Yes, I'm not either.
I'm like looking to see. I bet that's probably double check. Yep, Ryan Stacks. That's him.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'll have to look him up.
he does a lot of like
I'm good at names. That's awesome because neither of us are.
terrible, but yeah, he does like man chest type romance
Oh,
that he
wow.
writes, and yeah,
Wow.
I will send you his Amazon so you can see what I just for in the future. You don't have to look at it right this second, but yeah, this dude is awesome. He's like one of my favorite people to see pop up on TikTok,
Cool.
just because he's so
Awesome.
unique.
Cool. Thank you for that. I will have to have a look. I'm curious if he's any good. I'll have to have a read.
So I will fully admit I have not had a chance to like I've recognized oh that's funny some of the models he's used are some of the like ones I won't touch because they get used so much and one of them is a model that was one of the very first models I ever used on a cover, so that's very funny
Yeah.
to me. But I haven't actually read, I don't think I've ever read his stuff, but he's got really all of his
No,
books
I
are a good chunk of reviews on them, so he's not like a nobody author.
nice. I'll have to go have a look.
Sorry. I was like, looking at
Awesome.
what his stuff was. It's interesting because even his stuff, the you could better the cover, the more reviews that book has.
That
So
is
like,
interesting.
it's not
Yeah,
so
it's
great
amazing
covers,
how
like 20
much.
reviews, but his good covers have like 100 plus.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing how much it makes a difference.
Yeah.
He goes to author events so ladies love him. I
Oh,
can
I bet.
imagine.
I bet he does. I am curious though if he falls into the trap of because some male authors that write romance, like I don't like the way that they write sexy times for women because a lot of
All
times
right.
they'll like say things that are very awkward that you're like that's not a thing. Like you clearly don't understand how the woman's body works because a tampon is not pleasurable in that sort of way. Like you know,
Yeah, it is
so
not.
like I'm curious if he's that kind of author or not.
God, yeah,
I'm intrigued
yeah.
now.
I've not, I've not read any like that. I have to say, thank goodness. Oh dear.
there's there's a female author on TikTok that she has this whole running. I think she's an author. She might just be a reader, but she not just, but you know what I mean. But she has this whole running thing right now where she reads specifically romances written by men, and then she will read the cringe parts out loud in her TikToks, and be like, and
Oh
like
my
give her
goodness.
feedback on it. Like, I don't know, like I will binge watch her stuff. When she pops back up on my feed again, I will go back and catch up on all the ones I missed because they're
Oh my
hilarious.
goodness. That is funny. Yeah. I know the lit RPG lot are very similar because most of them are men. And there was quite a few of them that would sort of send me like, sort of, would you mind reading this and tell me if it's all right from a woman's point of view?
I have someone over
So,
here saying that they love that creator too, that they think she's hilarious. Yes, she totally is. I think she's so funny.
find her.
There's a couple people in here I always crack up about. Yeah. I think that's the hard thing with like figuring out TikTok is figuring out how to post something that you enjoy and you enjoy like you would enjoy watching, but you don't feel like you don't feel like a sellout or super cheesy. Like really
That's what I'm struggling with majorly.
the trick is figuring out how to find the people that are the same kind of nerd that you are. I think is probably the best way to put it because
Yeah,
everyone's nerdy about something. Like everybody has
yeah,
hobbies and things they love. Like I feel like that's the trick is figuring out how to reach your little community. And really to do that, sometimes you have to go a while making stuff that you find entertaining until those people find you. Like,
got you. I'll have to do that. I have a question. So I have an ethics TT. I'm assuming that's TikTok author question.
mhm,
There isn't any more yet.
totally get it. It's all good.
I know what it's like typing like this.
Yes.
I am appalling at it. Here we go. I have found an author I love who makes a specific content. Okay.
Poor Karen's used to my like I'm the worst at typos because normally I'm typing with one hand and a child like my 2-year old crawling on me with the other. And I am also the kind of person that unless I look away for a little bit and then go back to something, I see what I wanted to write and not what's actually there. So poor
Yeah.
Karen gets sent probably daily messages with typos from me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I swear, I probably apologize multiple times a day to her too, because I feel
Dude,
so bad
it's
about it.
fine.
Because I know it's so not professional. But my
Makes no
problem is
difference to
if I
me.
don't do it, if I don't send it right then with that, I won't remember to send it because I won't have the notification
Yeah.
anymore that I need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a bit of a question. I made a set of 3 covers based on her specific content she never acknowledged. As a pre-made or as a custom did you make them?
And how long has it been?
Yeah.
Just curious because I know I have dealt with a couple versions of this scenario, including one I'm in the middle of right now.
Yeah. Okay. Um, she never know, but released a book in the last month named the same. So made a set of 3 covers. Yes, pre-made January this year. Made a set of 3 covers based on her specific content she never acknowledged, but then released a book in the last month named the same.
Did she pay the final payment?
Yeah.
That's kind of the biggest. And again, it's also going to come down to your contract. So, for example, I have a situation that's similar. I had, but I'm also a little bit odd in the designer community with how my contract goes because most designers require a 50% non-refundable deposit. I
Is it
am
not
kind
refundable? Mine isn't, but
most people are
I just do a
non-refundable.
50% deposit up front.
I don't like I'm the kind of person that because I know I'm not super well off and life happens, I cannot guarantee that if someone needs to cancel on me, like that I haven't spent that money on bills. So what I do instead is I start working on covers. Start working on projects on a Friday, and the Monday before I send the contract and do a $50 refundable deposit. Um, and in my contract, the way I have it set up is that if at any point in time someone decides I can't get them what they want, that I will refund them that $50 and then I'll like rework it so I can sell it as a pre-made. And I do change it a good chunk, but if they don't want for me to sell it, if they don't want me to like do that, I keep the $50 to recoup the money I spent on stock images or things I needed to purchase to make the cover. Um, But I also have in my contract that I require payment within, I think it's a week of the cover being finished. Um, and if they don't respond to me in that, like, and if I've been ghosted, normally I'd do a buffer of like a month or so because I know that life happens. I know sometimes Facebook or emails stuff get lost with messages. But I'll try to contact them typically 2 or 3 times, and if I haven't heard anything, then I go ahead and take it apart and rework it. Um, but yeah, I'm
Mine's
dealing
so
with the
different. Yes.
like I said, it's I know it's totally different from most the
Yeah,
way most
I
designers work.
do. If they're booking like a long way ahead, I do a $50 non-refundable booking fee, so that just secures their place. And then 2 to 3 days ish before I start, I'll do the 50% deposit minus any booking fee if there was one. And then I do the other 50% at the end before I send the files. So if they don't pay, they don't get the.
Yeah,
But I'm a lot more chatty with my authors, I think, than most people are. As in,
I
I
am
will
too.
send them like, how's this going? How's this going? Screenshots
Yep.
left, right, and center, kind of thing, which a lot of authors, really appreciate. I've had so many people say, "Oh, I love how you communicate, and I love that I can see how it's coming as I can go, so I can so go, oh, actually, I prefer that in green or whatever if they need
Hmm.
any changes." But we tend to like get on Daz together, and they'll see me do the figure, and so they know what the character's wearing. They don't have to worry about it. Are they going to like it
Yeah.
at the end? They've seen it being dressed, and that kind of stuff. So, and I've got the rest of this question. So she said, no, 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 she never used me. I did it and sent it to her as an idea. And she does the same as one of us. Me, I assume, but I don't know. So,
So
yeah,
then,
I guess, yeah, she never used you, then there's not a lot you can really do about it. Maybe she was in the middle of having them remade at the time.
well, and if
Me.
did if she didn't pay for them, then I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, honestly, if she didn't pay for them, they weren't hers, and it sounds like she went ahead and
Yeah,
found something else that spoke to her in a different way. Um,
exactly. I'd rework them as a pre-made and put a different
yeah,
title on them, obviously,
yeah,
um, and just release them.
yeah, which is pretty standard. I have someone asking, is there a seasonal cycle for pre-mates other than holidays? So I will say the pre-made
Not
market right
August.
now. Yeah, not August. August, I swear, is like when most authors and designers take off. But
Yeah,
and December. December is another month that is typically very slow. But I
yeah,
will say within the designer community, this has been a big thing of discussion lately. That over the last year, we have seen a huge shift in really more the last 9 months in the pre-made market, um, because it's actually slowed down a lot. Oh, style wise, I'm sorry.
yeah.
It depends on the genre. I will say the expected quality for a pre-made to be able to sell has jumped significantly, um, a lot. Depending on the genre, like I do a lot of fantasy. Fantasy definitely has been pushing, definitely dark fantasy, big time, um, and pushing more and more illustrated style, but with a blend of realistic elements. So, like in order for them to sell, most things in paranormal romance or most fantasies require a head swap to actually sell, honestly, for like any price. Um,
Yeah,
that's a big one. And I am I am seeing more and more object and typography based ones for fantasy for pre-mates, but I will say too that unless you want like if you want an object or typography based one, you really kind of have to do a custom if you don't want like a basic here's a sword, here's
especially
a
a
staff, here's a
photography one.
skull. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not so bad for an object one because the object, the title's like any like cover, like with characters, you can just put the title at the bottom or the top, and you're okay. But a topography one, the title is the artwork. So yeah, that one, it either gets sold as a pre-made with the title, which I've done before, or
Yep.
you need a custom.
I've let my group sometimes vote on like the title. Like I feel like people like suggest, hey, these are titles like that I would use, and I would typically pick something that I could see working in general. Because I would say even my regular covers, about 50% of my pre-mades, the authors choose to keep the title.
Oh wow, I've only had one. That
Really?
was it. One dark fantasy that kept the title. Yeah,
I think part
that's
of it
amazing.
is whether or not someone is buying it before or after they got very far into the story.
Yes, yeah. And I have the rest of the reply as well. She said, no, I think I gave her the book concept of your ones or
Oh,
of the one she
okay.
published.
Are you saying? I have a feeling that I know what you're saying, and this is like the bane of a cover designer's existence. Are you saying that you came up with the design and what they came out with, what they published with, was very similar to that? So you think that there's a chance that they took your like mock-up
Mark,
to
yeah.
a like maybe Fiverr
Cheaper just
designer or someone way cheaper and
that
had them do
way.
it, because that is a big problem that we run into. And it's actually
Mm-hmm.
one of the big reasons why many cover designers do a 50% non refundable deposit, because they've had that happen so many times, and that's what they do to prevent it. And honestly, if I get burned in that way enough times, I will have to swap to that too. But for the time being, I've been very
Yeah,
lucky with most of my people.
yeah. That's why I do a 50% upfront, certainly. But I've been lucky. I figured once people have invested the 50% and they've watched me like dress the character and pick the background and okay this and okay that, they're so invested that they don't tend to go away after that. So she says, no, I think she took my mock up and decided to write it based on having visual representation. So she wrote the book on your mock up.
I could see something like that because I know a lot of authors
Yeah.
buy. I mean, it sucks that they didn't buy it, but
Yeah.
uh, but
There's
I
not a
do
lot you
know
can
that
do about that.
yeah, and I know that there's a lot of times that
Yeah.
I'll see like in my own. I mean, I've got Pinterest boards of art for like things that inspired me for scenes or characters or that kind of stuff. And sometimes I do have like book covers that I've seen that spoke to me that like obviously I'm not going to write the same book they did, but
Yeah.
just the art of it made me go, "Ooh, what about?"
Yeah.
Like it's very common.
Yeah. Right. I really need to go to bed because my hubby's already gone upstairs.
Well, get some sleep. We'll do this again next Friday. Hang out and chill and chat.
Yes.
Talk
Yes.
about books
And
and
we'll
book
have to come up
covers.
with a new genre.
Yes,
And
we'll do that. Thank you.
cool. Well, it was great fun. And
Yeah.
I
Thanks
would
for
have
joining
been
me.
excited if she said, hey, that inspired me, but no, she was silent. There's not a lot we can do about that, unfortunately, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it sucks. We've
it does suck.
all been there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, hopefully we'll
I'm
see
gonna
you
go to
guys next
bed.
week.
Yeah. Bye. Now I gotta work out how to hang up.